Hi y'all, welcome back to the Paddle Testers. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the width of your paddle and what that means. And when I talk about the width, I'm not talking about the face anymore. We covered the different shapes on the last episode. What I'm talking about is the width of the paddle in this direction. And so there are a lot of different widths out on the market and they all have different purposes. And again, I want to educate you so that you can find the right one that fits your game. Now, one of the thinnest paddles that you're going to see is something like this. This is probably like 11 or 12 millimeters, but I want you to notice when the ball hits here, you hear that really high pitched sound. All it's doing is it basically takes the power that's coming from the paddle and it just reflects it straight back. It doesn't dampen the ball. It doesn't slow the ball down. It just basically knocks straight off, which is why you kind of get that really high pitched sound. Now, what that means though is you get maximum power, which might excite some of you, but what you gain in power, you lose in control. There's always a trade-off. So going for a very thin paddle like this, you have to have excellent control over the power, or I'm sorry, over your shots with your hand. You have to come at this with a very loose grip, or every ball will be sailing out, okay? So you have to be able to adjust your game yourself to match this paddle. Not everybody is super good at that. A lot of us really struggle with matching our game to our paddle, which is why there are different paddles available. So we're gonna go from the most power you can get to one of the paddles that has the most control that you can get. So this paddle is 19 millimeters in contrast to 11 millimeters. So this is the Selkirk Invicta Lux. The Lux came out a couple of years ago, and I mean, it even says right on it, it's a control paddle. So for players who can generate power, especially those of us who came from tennis and we make a good solid connection with the ball, like that's something we do really well and we generate power, but we lack the ability to control where our shots are going, a paddle like this is a good starting point. So the thicker the paddle is, the more control. So the inside is hollow, so you get that deeper sound, much instead of that real high-pitched sound, it's a much deeper sound here. It's full of air spaces in here, and what that means is when the ball hits, it's going to absorb a lot of that power and then help you have a lot more control. Now, when you have an all-control paddle like this, though, you sacrifice power. So that, again, there's always that trade-off when you're looking at it, but that's a good way to start if you're coming from tennis, or if you're a really hard hitter, you might want to go with something for a little bit more control. Most players, though, are pretty happy with either a 16 or a 14 millimeter paddle. This one is 16, this one is 14. Not a lot of difference, but even just a couple of millimeters makes a big difference on the court. Myself, because I was a tennis player, I'm really good at generating power. I tend to go for a 16. I really like to have my paddle help more with that control. But I do find players that, for whatever reason, maybe they're a little bit weaker, they just can't generate that power. They might go for something like a 14 millimeter that's going to help them. The last thing that you want to do is strain your muscles to try to generate power. If the paddle isn't helping you create and get that ball over the net, you need to look for a different paddle. The paddle should always help your game. It should never hinder your game. You shouldn't be feeling like you're fighting against your paddle and your opponents at the same time. Just battle your opponent. So let's try to find you a paddle that really suits your game style. So next time you're out at the court, pay attention to the different widths of paddles. Ask some of the players around you what they prefer and why, and educate yourself a little bit more on the shapes of paddles and the widths of paddles so that you can find the one that's right for you. Have a great day.